I always like how it says go live, and I can't even tell if I'm going live or not. All right, guys, let's get into another episode here. Me ranting about why you should be an entrepreneur and all the things of such. So today's topic, really, I'm going to talk about, really follow up about last week, what the bakery experienced, and kind of add a little more journal entry type of content into the videos, as well as talking about certain points. So today's point, which we'll get to, is about putting your emotions in check while letting your ego continue forward. So, when you hear a lot of times, and uh, when you're being hired on, and some of the culture values is put your ego in check. Really, that's what they really mean is put your emotions in check. So, and that's really what the issue is. So let's talk about last week. So last week was pretty intense. Last 2 weeks for October for the bakery have been pretty overwhelming, to be honest with you. We've really taken on more than we can chew. We actually had probably one minor fail where I actually made the wrong cake flavor for an order, and that just goes to the aspect that when we're taking on orders, sometimes we go a little too far and we take on more than we can chew. And with that regard, we end up potentially failing. And it's not always the case. We've definitely taken on quite a bit more than we can chew before in the past. I remember last year with what we've dubbed Hail 43. Where we're literally up for 43 hours straight to take care of orders for up to, I think it was a little over 2,000 plus potential consumers for several different celebrations. And we actually succeeded really, really well with that. One of those orders was for Miss USA 2018, and we were so honored that she chose us to be her bakers, and we just wanted to do the absolutely best job possible for that honor. And another one was for a church, a very large church that had ordered from us previously for about 2,000 or 2,500 guests just for their church alone. I can't remember what the number was, but this time it was a little bit smaller. It was about 800 guests, and they were they're a delight to work with. They're so friendly, and so it was them. It's that wedding. There were 6 other weddings that day. No, there were 7 weddings for that one date, plus a celebration cake. And then the day before that, I think there was 6 weddings for that day, and then the day before that, there were a bunch of smaller orders. So it was, on top of that, we had to get ready all the desserts for the one big giant day. And it was myself, Priscilla, and at the time, Mom was also helping us out. She helps us out quite a bit, and trying to somehow find a way to get her to secretly become full time at some point. We'll see, because I know that she truly enjoys working with us. So why stop there? Why not come on full time and express yourself to your fullest potential and what makes you happy? Which for her, being with her kids makes her super happy. But the last 2 weeks, going back to current times, the last 2 weeks have been a bit of a challenge. It was difficult to take on so much work when it was an uncertain season because of the whole COVID thing and a lot of reschedules. Thankfully, only one cancellation, and luckily that one cancellation they had only just booked like a few days prior and then canceled, so it wasn't a big deal. But that was like 6 months ago. But in the last 2 weeks, taking on a lot of smaller orders, more to the point of where keeping track of so many orders was the actual issue. It wasn't necessarily the delivery times and things of such, but rather the number of smaller orders what became overwhelming, and partly had to do with, we started the online ordering, and we're still getting used to that. We're still getting used to having folks order smaller um, or order smaller items. That is celebrations for less than 20, normally around about 10, 6 to 10 people, possibly even just two. And that's a bit of a challenge for us because when those add up, though, over over a lot of them will actually be a good return on investment. It becomes harder to track them. So it's a different experience that we're not used to. And that became a challenge for us. So what happened was with just one, thankfully just one, we didn't get the flavor right. So obviously we're attempting to compensate them as best we can to will make them happy and be legitimate for us. And learn from that lesson as well. I personally take responsibility for that because that was actually my fault. It was the inside of the cake, which is my territory. Outside is still Priscilla's territory. And so we learned from those lessons, and we had a lot of weddings. So not only did we have a lot of little tiny orders, but the wedding season, which was here and there in September, all of a sudden was in full swing, back to the way things used to be. And so all these little orders on top of much larger orders. And so that created a very tough balancing act. As well as on top of the wedding orders, we had a few custom orders. One order where we made a like a 2 foot by 2 foot replica of the Disney giant pumpkin of Mickey Mouse. Definitely our own version of take on that. And it was so heavy we had to roll it into the venue on a cart, and the guests were just wowed. And thankfully that was like the last order for the whole weekend. That was 2 weeks ago, and so it was a great ending to a very stressful the weekend. It was the weekend of 10/10/2020. So naturally, I think we had about like 400 calls that came in for that date, or online inquiries. If you put in phone calls, online inquiries, and emails, even a few texts that came in for that date, and just like, where were you last year that time? Because that's literally when people were booking for 10/10/2020. That's a very unique date that will never happen again. And then last weekend for 10/17. 10/10/2020 was actually much easier than the weekend of 10/17. So last weekend. The reason for that was all the orders for 10/10/2020. The majority of those orders were all on 10/10/2020, with a couple on 10/9 and a couple on 10/11 as far as size go. And then there were still a lot of those little small ones tossed in there as well. And each one of those is delivery, because we're still just a delivery kitchen at the moment. And that was definitely challenging, and the amount of time that had to be on the road, the amount of precision as far as setting up a route, knowing who's going to take what orders, and what time you're going to get back to get the next orders, knowing which orders need to go out. When you have 5 celebration cakes that are literally identical, and you have to know which one's which, because on the inside of the cake is something different than the rest of them. So the outside, for example, I think they're mostly our ombre design. A couple of them were the happy birthday ombre, which means they have the topper in it. So that was easy kind of to separate those out. But you had these ombre cakes, and I think they're all like shades of pink. So you have shades of pink across the board, and you have to know which one's which. Thankfully, Priscilla had made it so that each one had a ticket put with it, which was really, really important. And that made it very easy for us to figure out which one was which. So that was kind of a balancing act as well. The other challenges that 10-10-2020 brought to us were the number of wedding orders that were for that day. I think there was about 7 or 8 weddings that were just for 10-10-2020, along with a couple random celebration orders that kind of snuck in there, even though the date was already been blocked off. So again, coming from me, being a person who's like super selfish about going after what I want, overextended ourselves again, taking on more orders than we should have, orders that, though we delivered a sweet experience, we were letting greed, desire, and when I say greed, I mean a lower value being respected higher than a higher value. We wanted to have more than what was really reasonable to achieve the higher values. So that was where we had to step back after retrospect on what are our limits. Now, we couldn't really retrospect on those limits in regards to 10-17 because 10-17 had already been booked out like 3 weeks prior to that. I think we took our last order at the beginning of October or not beginning of October. Yeah, I think it was. I think it had one. I think we had one drop off, and then we accepted one more. So we had a huge number of orders that date. I think we had. Gosh, what did we have for that date? Let me take a look real quick. 10-17. Gosh, it's like an endless list on that calendar. I think we had 9 orders that date, of which two of those orders were celebrations, but one of those celebrations was actually a custom cake. It was 2 cakes. One was kind of like a Matrix theme, and another one was a Unikitty. I don't know what Unikitty is. Do you have any idea what Unikitty is? But anyway, somebody wanted a Unikitty custom cake, so we made our own representation of that. The recipient was super thrilled with that one. But yeah, so 9 orders that day. That's pretty intense. Going back to 10-10, I want to give a shout out to a good buddy of mine, Jazz Kiriki, and he was my ride along partner there. He's shadowing me for the day just to see what it's like to be in the shoes of Team Sweet here, Silver Rose Bakery, and see what that was all about. And I officially accepted his nickname of My Muscle because I had him doing some of the heavy lifting of stuff. So instead of me doing it, and I really appreciated the company and the muscle. So going back to 10-17. So 10-17 was. It's definitely not this weekend, that's for sure. 10-17 was definitely difficult in the perspective of distance. So we had a very interesting scenario where if just to kind of give you kind of a geographical understanding. So we're going to use the screen. So my nose is Phoenix. That's like the pinpoint. That's the center of the area that we work around, which is about a 40-mile, on average, about a 40 to 50-mile radius that we're consistently working within. And it's rare, extremely rare, when we breach past that marker and then have to go all the way to the very edge of the other one, which is what we did for one of those. And I swear I was going to be late because I was one taking those 2 deliveries. but we made it. We actually made it just fine and with plenty of time apparently. And that that's really taking a look at your route and assessing the length of time, putting in consideration for the amount of time needed should a crash be on the road or an adjustment to traffic be happening. So 1017 was tough because there were a lot of wedding orders, and we went from kind of a semi-quiet time when it came to weddings to last week to 1010 was super busy, but 1017 was even busier. And so and normally when it comes to the wedding season, it's a progression to heaviness, but it's a nice incline that kind of helps you adjust each weekend in preparation for how much time you're going to have to put into the kitchen to do the work, and then time for deliveries. And so we went from going steady to straight up, and that actually really made things challenging. There were many late nights still baking, which normally that doesn't happen unless we have even more orders than typical. And 1017 was special because of the fact that the number of orders we took on was probably too many for our bakery, but we did succeed through it with one minor hiccup. And honestly, hiccups don't happen very often, so it was very surprising when we when we got the message. I was really taken aback because I was confident that we nailed it, and nailed it very well. So that'll kind of go into what I'm going to talk about today, but I'm not really sure if I'm really going to touch on those items. What I really want to talk about today is regarding your ego, and not putting that in check, put your emotions in check. But before that, do that one last journal entry because I'll be talking about it next week for sure, and looking at the board for the work this week. Just like, yeah, yeah, that's that's scary as shit. That's for sure. But I'm looking forward to it. It's good. And in this week, the reason why it's a little bit unusual is, or more challenging is than 1017, is that 1020 for the weekend. We go by, we name the weeks by the weekend, the Saturday. 1024, which is this week. There's actually orders starting on the 22nd, Thursday. There's 3 or 4 wedding orders just for that day alone, plus tastings, plus celebration cakes going out. It's rare and also unusual to have during the week weddings. Now we've done ones on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, every day of the week, but Thursday is usually is not really common. It's normally that's a day where I am pivoting over to preparing the initial steps for a lot of the desserts that are going to be going out that weekend. And at that point, usually I have already made all the cakes for Priscilla to start working on. So, and then some of the other team members that we have, like our cookie girl, for example, has already completed her baking side of it and has already probably bagged most of the cookies for the weekend or for some of the orders that are going out. And a week like this means that we should have had started already today. Now we had a lot of other preset appointments that we had for Monday. Monday is usually our relaxed day where we're doing administrative work or we're doing something regarding our health. I went to today to see a chiropractor, Pekin Valley, Lisa Palmer. Fan freaking tastic. Loved the experience. I have to admit, if you're going to get into see a doctor or a chiropractor or dentist, I would say if you can afford it, go to someone who is cash only. You're just going to be so much happier. The care that they take is just far superior than those who are taking insurance, because I'm telling you, regulations really screw up the economy and can screw up your health too. But to have started today would have been the better approach for this type of week because we have so many minor, small cakes going out, plus a lot of tastings. It happens to be a very heavy cake tasting and plus consultation week as well, on top of many little orders and weddings starting on Thursday, with even more on Friday, and then even more on Saturday with one really wacky one that's not even a wedding, it's a birthday with a two-tier and like a dozen little cakes, which is intense. And then a lot of stacked cakes. So that means our fridge space, all the refrigerators we have, is going to be super tight. So it's going to be very unusual, very tough weekend to handle and to prepare for. So I'm excited for it. I know it's going to be stressful, but I really think that we can knock this out of the park, and I'm really anxious to get started tomorrow morning. Going on to your emotions. I'll take a sip here because I'm feeling it. Your emotions should be the secondary to your values. What you value is your primary. And the emotions that you experience must be based on your values. And that seems kind of weird because you might have a feeling of A, or a value of A, but know that you get a feeling of B. When B happens, you get a certain emotional trigger. I can tell you now that over time, you can adjust your emotions to be in line with your values, and that's extremely important with your ego. Now, ego. I'm not going to go into the definition. We'll go more into depth about ego, self-esteem, self-confidence later on as a business owner. What I really want to touch base on is ego above emotions and keeping emotions in check over your ego. Now, again, when you get into a job, normally the mentality is to keep your ego in check, but there's nothing about your emotions. And when they're referencing that, they're really referencing, in my mind, your emotions, how you feel, how you express ideas to others. And those typically, when they're very vocal and very either abrupt or rushed or harsh or concerned, it's usually an emotional response. Rarely, it seems, is it based on value premises, and that's really what you want to have your emotions lined up. Now, if you're seeing that perhaps your emotions are getting up, but you notice that the fact that the reason for it is because if you and your team go down this path, it is going to be a failure, and you're very abrupt, very harsh, and pointed. As long as it's within reason, it's not bashing individuals, but rather it's focusing on the objective outcome, then it should be reasonable. It should be allowed because it's based on an egoistic perspective. It's based on achieving an outcome that is of value to you. Now, as an entrepreneur, I am absolutely stressing that your emotions should be in check, that your ego must be allowed to be set free. Set free your ego, express yourself, go down that road, pursue your values, your highest values that will achieve the most happiness for yourself. Now, when it comes to being an entrepreneur, It is the creation that is being produced through your efforts, through what it is that you perceive to be the best course of action, what is right to be produced. And that is very much a personal, very much a selfish perspective that must be obtained in order for you to achieve your happiness. Now, that does require a very strong set of values and understanding yourself. It doesn't mean that you have to go reflect like my value of this, my value of this, my value of this every second, but rather an understanding of what it is you perceive is right to achieve your happiness. And doing that is the only way that you are going to succeed in your efforts as an entrepreneur. It is not the X group's perspectives, whether it's a racial group, an ethnic group, a religious group, any other type of group, that is going to get you to achieve your happiness. It is not this person's opinion, or your parents' opinion, or a friend's opinion, or some random person on Facebook's opinion about something. Those are opinions based on another individual's perspective of how the world works and are not aligned with what it is that you believe, what you value. So it doesn't mean that you should shun them unless what they're saying is of absolute no value to your achievement. Now, there are things, for example, that me and Priscilla don't agree with. It doesn't mean I shun Priscilla. It does mean that I am objectively looking at the information in a way where I'm assessing what are the facts, how do those affect what outcome I desire to have, and then how can I achieve my desired outcome with those facts. And if I need to pivot because what Priscilla's opinion is correct, and I do that because the facts align correctly. My understanding was incorrect, and therefore I change it. It is not get all emotional. It is not whine and get upset. It is taking what is as true and making the right action, taking the right action, so I can achieve what it is I desire most. Now, when you put your ego into check, you're essentially saying that this group's opinions, that person's opinion, is of more importance, of a pseudo higher value than your own values. It is a must that you understand what it is that you wish to achieve and pursue that relentlessly. But you must be objective, rational in doing so. It means understanding what the facts are and that what is truly is. So if perhaps facts are provided to you that suggest an alternative path may be better or is better, you make the correct actions accordingly. It doesn't mean go and change your position. It means consider the facts and proceed based on what you believe is the best course of action. If it means changing your course correct. If it means continuing on with an understanding of the potentials and going on with the risk anyway, or the potential failures and going on with the risk anyway, then do so. It is not stall. It is not hold back. It is not don't do. It is pursuit of what it is you want to do because it is what is right. Now, you put your ego in check. You're also saying that that group's opinion, this person's opinion, must be right. It must be correct. Why? Doesn't matter. It is they said so, and therefore that must be the way things are. And so in that regard, well, simply literally and quite literally, sacrifice what it is we value, the higher value, for the lower or no value to which this group or that person stated. Now, there are times where, if you're not quite an entrepreneur yet, that you need to consider your position. If you are an employee still, um, your boss may tell you to go do a certain thing, and in which case you can provide that your boss with the facts, the perspectives and opinions if they're willing to listen to that. And if after discussion their boss still has that same position, well, if you want to keep your job, then you must decide to pursue the actions of which you were given to do, the duties you were given. No, duties, more like the responsibilities that you're given. And if you do not agree with those, and it is not going to work for you anymore, then pursue other avenues. Become your entrepreneur if that is so to speak. Let me take you back to when I had actually did follow the idea and embrace uh, putting my ego in check. Even though my philosophy, my perspectives on things still were, I was still struggling with those, and I was to accept that I can go forward with my ego and still achieve something, even though I was an employee. So this is going to my last actual job, which I was working for a software company at the time, and I didn't. I was not. I was unhappy with my position. I was unhappy with what I was producing, which wasn't very much. I was more of a just a an order taker for the most part, at least at the time. That was my perspective. Could I have made more out of it? It's possible. It's possible, but I didn't have the understanding and know-how to him. Pretty much was just shut up for the most part. And doing so actually was part of the reason why I was probably fired from that position. It was not an exciting experience to be fired from it. Actually, it wasn't my last job. No, it was 3 jobs prior. I had a few other ones before I finally decided to bail and become an entrepreneur. And with this particular job, again, a software company, I had worked for them for about 2 years by then, and I definitely followed the put my ego in check. I did not speak. I did not try to pursue forward. Did not try to give opinion or to question or to assess and look at more facts because, well, I'm an order taker. And so that perspective created a mindset for me that was very much of just give me what I'm supposed to be doing, and then I'll go do it. If you don't like what I produce, then well, I tried. So give me a participation trophy for it. And that's a perspective that's closed-minded. Um, feeling that I deserve something for not that I didn't earn was very much a perspective that put me in line for being let go. And it did. And it sucked because even for one of the two owners of it was also a husband and wife team that created the product was a huge admirer of one of the books I personally enjoy too, and so that really sucked knowing that I almost in some parts felt like I let down what it is I believe in. And that was actually a good thing that I was let go because it allowed me to start pursuing my philosophy in life. In my next job, I remember that I wasn't quite there yet. I was still with the put the ego in check mode. But the last job, the last one, the one where I finally, after like 5 months, I said, I'm done with this nonsense. I didn't put my ego in check. I put my emotions in check and pursued the facts the way they are and delivered based on those facts. I know that the company was, my bosses were unhappy with that, but I, for the life of me, could not lie to the customers. I could not produce fake or illegitimate production to deliver to a prospective or to a real customer. So, in that regard, uh, it was very much a an eye-opening experience to hold my ground and do what I believed was right. And after a while, I decided, okay, the software world is just not for me anymore. I'm going to get out of that. And I find something else. And for a short time, became an investor and purchased some property, commercial and residential. And then uh, finally, Priscilla decided, okay, she had enough with the corporate world as well. Let's get this bakery going. But that took a lot out of us, a lot out of each of us in our own way. And for me, it was very much the time I needed to really reassess my personal values and understand that my ego is what drives my success, my value in me, my happiness, my productivity, what I can produce that I personally enjoy and love doing is should be the front runner in all things that I pursue. And then any time that delivering upon that value, I in return receive a positive outcome, which is many, many, many times. Uh, I get a sense of fulfillment. I become happier. I become more ecstatic. I desire more to continue doing what I'm already producing. Matter of fact, I want to produce something even bigger. I want to do even more. And that's, with our brick and mortar store coming, that is a huge achievement to pursue. That once it's established, the happiness that I will achieve from that I know even Priscilla will gain from it, is something that in the one time that we will get to experience the grand opening of that first building, that memory, that feeling, we will do whatever we can to hold on to that and use it to replicate that same happiness, that same fulfillment, because that right there is living a life of happiness, living a true entrepreneurial life that brings yourself selfishly a desire to achieve and a love for yourself and the happiness for which you gain. And that means keeping your ego out of check, keeping your emotions in check, meaning keeping them in alignment with what you value most, so that when it's time, you can express yourself fully. And don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean that you can never be angry, you'll never be sad or upset or frustrated or uninterested. It just means that when those times come, it's based on what you value, not some random emotional feeling that has no backing to it. So I want to hear from you. What have you done that you perceive is putting your ego in check, and when you feel you have not deserved that? What have you done to change your perspective, whether it's you call it the same way I call it, of putting your emotions in check or not, or something different, and you find or you found that when you did this, whatever it was, that by putting your values first, putting your ego as a primary, your self fulfillment as a primary, that you now establish something new. I want to know something that you did that created that. Or if you've already been there and done that, what is it you're doing that is enabling you to fulfill your happiness through your ego and ensuring that your emotions are keeping in line with your values? Anyway, so I'm going to call it a night. It's been about 40 minutes now. I really appreciate you all taking the time to watch this. If you're watching the rerun, I really appreciate it. Either way, please like the video. If you haven't subscribed or rung the bell, please do so you stay up to date. I am doing these videos once a week. I'm calling them the Michael Sweet Journal because I want to talk about what's going on with the bakery and its achievements, and want to talk about a topic that is definitely related to things like egoism and being an entrepreneur with a mindset that is very much egoistic, and as well as perspectives on entrepreneurial life that isn't just the standard same old buzzword stuff. Really appreciate it, guys. Have a good evening, or if you're watching this in the morning already, good morning to you. We'll take care. We'll see you next week. All right, bye bye.